very warm welcome to you all. My name is Antje Fiedler and I'm an associate editor of the Journal of Small Business Management. I have the great pleasure to talk with Professor Donald Kuratko, or Dr. K, today about his research on the entrepreneurial mindset in corporate entrepreneurship. Donald Kuratko is the Jack M. Gill Chair of Entrepreneurship, Professor of Entrepreneurship, and Executive Director of the Johnson Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Kelley School of Business of Indiana University in Bloomington. His paper, Entrepreneurial Mindset in Corporate Entrepreneurship, Forms, Impediments, and Actions for Research, co-authored with Jeffrey Hornsby and Alexander McKelvie, was published in April 2021 in the Journal of Small Business Management. Thank you, Donald, for agreeing to talk to me today, and welcome.
Thank you. It's my honor. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So, Donald, to start with, can you please tell us where the idea for the paper came from?
So the idea of the paper was that the fact that the Journal of Small Business Management was doing a special issue on the entrepreneurial mindset. And because my research has focused over the last 30 years, specifically on corporate entrepreneurship, I felt like it was an opportunity in this issue to cover the field about how the entrepreneurial mindset works inside of organizations. So it was really sort of a proliferation of my work in the past, but also looking ahead so that we could see what has happened in the past, what could be better for the future for scholars, researchers, and even practitioners to use as we move ahead. So that was sort of the genesis of the idea.
Fantastic. And what are the most interesting insights from the paper?
Well, I think the whole thing is great, but obviously we're going to pinpoint some of the insights. I think one of the things we tried to show was, first of all, we talked a little bit about what is this mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset. And so we talked about it having the different aspects of it so that people would understand there's parts that comprise this mindset. But then we looked at, so how does it integrate into the corporate environment? Because one of the things that's been talked about is, do corporate environments inadvertently kill the entrepreneurial mindset because of the corporate mindset that exists? So we talked a little bit about that and then discussed some of the impediments that really force it to be pushed away and why it's so difficult for individuals to express their entrepreneurial mindset inside of an organization. So we talked about things like sometimes they worry about, how do I legitimize my idea in front of the executives? We talked about what innovation is expected of me. If the company says we want innovation, that's great. But we talked in the paper about specific types, whether it's a corporate venture you're going to develop, is it going to be more strategic entrepreneurship, or is it just an entrepreneurial orientation that they want you to have? And then we also talked about the coordination of managers, because in research we've done in the past, we've talked about the different levels of, first line managers, middle managers, senior managers, but it all has to coordinate for corporate entrepreneurship and corporate innovation to really take place. And then we talked a bit about some operating controls that should be in place so ideas don't go off the rails, so to speak, or individuals go off the rails. And then we talked about, again, like I said earlier, the failure to accept the entrepreneurial mindset in the corporation. And so those are some of the things we brought as impediments to some of the highlights that we thought, because really, if you look at that, it informs the scholars from an academic point of view. It also informs the practitioner about what are the things that we better beware of in our organization if, in fact, we really want to get the entrepreneurial mindset to prosper. I think those are some of the real highlights of the paper.
Thank you. I mean, my next question would be to ask you about the practical implication, and you already answered that for the managers, but are there any other ideas maybe for policymakers?
One of the things we brought out in the paper, we talked about an instrument that we developed a number of years ago called the Corporate Entrepreneurial Assessment Instrument. And in this instance, the CEAI is what we've nicknamed, of course, using the initials. And we've used it for a number of years. And we talk about it in the paper as well, because I think that most practitioners, for example, when they look at corporate innovation in general, corporate entrepreneurship, it's sort of a pretty big bubble. And they're really not sure sometimes. They see what Google does. They see what Amazon does. They think, should I copy that? Should we just have like an incubator, an accelerator? I mean, what should we do? And one thing that advice I've always given is, and we bring that out in the paper a little bit, is our instrument is a perceptual instrument looking at 5 dimensions. It looks at top management support, It looks at work discretion and autonomy. It looks at rewards and reinforcement. It looks at time availability, and it looks at organizational boundaries. The reason we look at those 5 elements, we say that you have to understand how employees are viewing those 5 things. I could have a senior manager say, we're great on all 5 of those dimensions. But if the managers themselves or the people down below the employees don't see it that way, they say, we have no time availability, or the boundaries are too stiff. We can't cross over boundaries in our organization. To me, I tell the practitioner, the instrument allows you to use it as a survey instrument to gather the data and find out, where do we start? Where do we start with this whole world of corporate entrepreneurship? If we can start by identifying where the real hindrance is at in the minds of our employees and correct that, now we can move forward. So that's one of the things I would add on that we talked in the beginning part of the paper.
Fantastic. Are there any other thoughts you would like to share with our stakeholders?
Well, I think from the scholarly point of view, we were talking about the practitioner, but I think from the scholarly point of view, we did put a table in the paper where we talked about some of the areas of future research on the corporate entrepreneurial mindset. And I think that's important because we want our young scholars to begin to look at this area. And I think post-COVID now, I truly believe this, that corporate entrepreneurship and corporate innovation is going to be even more important because the way we're doing work across the world is changing. And so because of that, we have to think of newer ways to innovate in our organizations. So I want to see our young scholars begin to further research this area. So we looked at things like, we need better measurement of the entrepreneurial mindset in organizations. Yes, I've got the CAI, but that's really of the environment. And so can we develop better measures to measure what's going on with the mindset? Secondly, how to develop the mindset. There's a lot of ways that research could be looking at how do organizations really develop the mindset in their people more. And then thirdly, we said, so what about implementation of the mindset? How can we help organizations understand how to implement it better? And we give you a series of research questions in the table that I think young scholars could use and look through and see where there might be some interest they'd like to delve into. So I think that really adds to the value of the paper.
Thank you so much, Donald, for sharing these interesting insights about the paper. The full version is available at the Taylor and Francis website of the Journal of Small Business Management. I'm sure that many of our colleagues will now want to know more about this topic, and many of the young scholars are also hopefully will pick up that area because it is really truly important to make better workplaces, but also to increase innovativeness in large firms. So thank you again, Donald, for taking the time to share your insights and knowledge today with us. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's been really great to be with you. And I really do hope they read the article because I think it's going to be of some value. So thank you for having me on this video.